2, 1. Hi, YouTube world. Back for another interview. I've been doing a lot of mental health interviews, and so I decided to switch things up and interview a good friend, Nikki. She got her Master's of Science in Nutrition and Wellness, and she's a nutritionist here in Dallas, and I wanted to get her thoughts on some things since eating healthy tends to be the thing nowadays. Nikki, how did you get into this field of nutrition?
Well, thanks for having me, Jared. So I initially started out actually as a business major in college, and I just always was finding myself trying to find ways to cook because I never really had to before college. And one of my friends that lived next door to me, she actually suggested it just because I was interested in doing business, but it seemed like too broad. I was just like, I'm not really sure what I want to do with it. But the nutrition field is pretty cool because there's just a lot of different avenues you can go in without having to start over. And something one of my professors always told me, if there's food involved, there's a job that you could have there. So anywhere that you see food, there's someone there that's needing to help and provide that hands-on expertise.
Now, were the classes difficult? Were they more science-based, or did they apply some practicals in there as well?
It was a combination. So we had hands-on classes like the food service, food science management, so doing like cooking, and then also the practical like nutrition counseling, medical nutrition therapy. So it was a good marriage of the two, and definitely the hardest for me was the science. I had to take biochemistry, and it was one of those, I just need to get through that. But that's definitely the building blocks of just understanding the background on how things are made up and providing that expertise of your nutrition background.
I will say I went to Taco Bell, the drive-thru, the other day, and because of the COVID-19 stuff, like I can feel the clean coming out of that place.
It was pretty clean?
The what?
You mean like, what do you mean by clean?
Like, it just felt like, everyone, of course, is sanitizing everything, the gloves, the mask. I mean, they were handing your food on a tray. I mean, I'm thinking it actually, I didn't feel as guilty eating there because I know that the place is a little bit cleaner. It felt cleaner. So maybe
Nice.
that's one of the benefits, I guess, of having higher standards of cleanliness
Yeah, it's
in a
definitely have more
restaurant.
confidence. And I don't think you should feel bad. You should enjoy your food at Taco Bell. They have some really great options there.
Well, I guess so. I mean, how often should someone eat at Taco Bell? Once a week? Is once a
I
week
think
too much, or?
so I've never been like a numbers person of you should do this X amount of times, but I think trying to figure out how that fits into your daily life, whether that's budgetary wise, if that's something that you want to incorporate and you find that you're getting enough nutrients from those meals, that's more what I would focus on. I think sometimes people can feel like they have to cut out certain things, but if Taco Bell is your favorite, maybe it is cutting back to like one less time. But I think you can find some pretty good options there. I know they have the power menu and some vegetarian options, so it's pretty broad that you could probably find something there without feeling guilty.
So what is your definition of the word healthy?
So it's changed a lot over the years. I know that there has been a lot of controversy over that just because there isn't a definitive stance on that. And so what I look at more is the type of food and the quality versus kind of what I said about Taco Bell, not deeming like certain foods or certain food groups as all bad. And so there's actually, if you want to get like really technical, there's certain recommendations based on, it's called the RAC, the reference amount customarily consumed. And so those will give parameters of, okay, if you're wanting to eat a certain product and it's under a certain amount of grams of fat, if you want to limit your saturated fat, your sodium intake. And so you could get really technical if you wanted to, but I like to just focus more on, what nutrients are you getting from the products? Is it variety? Like the more color in your meals, the better chance you have of a different variety of foods, and just being aware of serving size. So I think a lot of times we can get caught up in, oh, I shouldn't eat this and I can't eat this, but looking more at how does this fit in with my overall lifestyle, and providing like more sustainable options for ourselves.
Serving size is interesting because I noticed that so I lived in China for a year and a half, and the serving
Oh,
sizes for their meals are a lot smaller than the average American diet. So I don't know if there's been a lot of studies based on the average serving size per country. I'm guessing that the United States has a larger serving size per meal.
yeah, so that's a good question. I'd have to look into the comparison between the countries, but I don't know if you know, they've updated the nutrition fact labels in the last year just to better reflect what Americans are eating. Because previously the serving size would declare what they would suggest, but as Americans are eating more in bigger portions, like the serving size of ice cream has gone up just because Americans are, I think it's like 2/3 of a cup. And so just being more reflective of what we actually consume. And there's a difference between portion and a serving size. So the serving size is what is declared on the, like a package of cookies, and a portion would be whatever you eat. And so they're not always interchangeable.
I noticed that. So with you mentioned ice cream, Ben
Yeah.
and Jerry's obviously serving size is different than Bluebell. Would
Yeah.
Ben and Jerry's be the average serving size that they used to have, and Bluebell it just kind of made it the extra large serving size, or
So like you mean the pint of Ben and Jerry's?
yeah.
Yeah. Uh yeah, that would be like the, I think like, I don't eat Ben and Jerry's, so I would have to go and look, but it would just declare, I think there's X amount of servings, but oftentimes people would eat like the whole pint in a sitting. And so not trying to encourage that, but okay, if you're going to eat this, knowing how many grams of protein and how many grams of, so I would have to look and see the side-by-side comparison of Bluebell and Ben and Jerry's, but usually the smaller the size, people, and that's a little bit of the psychology, they're not as mindful of how much they're eating if it's in one container versus if you're scooping out from a huge Bluebell ice cream carton.
I heard one study. I didn't I wouldn't be able to reference it, but they said that people tend to eat more while watching TV versus when they're not watching TV. Is it because of just the mindfulness of what they're eating and how frequently they're eating?
Yeah, I would definitely contribute to it. I think we associate TV with comfort, like you're pretty relaxed and just not as mindful as you said. I don't know how many times I've been guilty of just like not serving. Like I think it's better to serve out of a container. So whether that's chips or like cookies, take portioning out what you want to eat versus just grazing in the bag, and you just don't realize how much you're eating because you're watching the TV, and you're just not as aware of how much you're eating. And I think it's just as I said, you're just a little bit more relaxed watching TV and wanting to just enjoy it.
So what's the difference between losing weight and eating healthy? Because sometimes people equate the two as the same thing.
Yeah, so there's definitely a difference. I would say being healthy is a mindset of just encompassing your mind, body, and soul. And so that there can be some correlations with losing weight, like you're striving to make healthier choices, but being healthy is more of a sustainable lifestyle, I would say. So I think we can get caught up in body composition and looking at, let's say, 100-pound person and a 150-pound person, and think the 100-pound person is healthier, but you're not factoring in muscle mass and exercise and even like mindful decisions. And so I oftentimes will discuss with people, okay, what is your plan after losing the weight? Like you're gonna want to build a sustainable routine and habits that you can be healthy. And I oftentimes think of food is such a ubiquitous part of our life. Like, what event do you go to without food? And so how can you not feel like you have to sacrifice or be like out of the loop of it, everything, but be able to make those healthy choices. So once you lose the weight, there's still, it's a lifestyle, I would say. You're still working towards maybe different goals, but you're wanting to be healthy along the way.
And how do you know what what part of your weight is um, muscle mass and what part is not? Do they have scales now that are able to tell you the difference of what is actual muscle mass and what is just the fat that you're trying to lose?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There are different scales. If you're not having, you could go to like a gym, or um, some physicians have like the higher end scales, but you could also get, like, they're called calipers, and so you can measure like your muscle mass from your triceps. It's a good way to be able to see the breakdown of your body composition, if you're wanting to tone up a little bit more, or just knowing what your baseline is always good.
So what are some myths and misinformation that people have about living a healthy lifestyle, about eating a nutritional meal? I don't know if you've ran across any.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the first ones that comes to mind is that eating healthy is too expensive, and that it doesn't taste good. It tastes like cardboard, and that the next diet will kind of help whatever their goals are. And so I would say, going through those three things I said, um, I think meal planning is a really big factor to cut down on costs, just because there are always going to be ways to pay for higher cost items. So if you go to Whole Foods, it is going to cost more than going to Walmart, but that doesn't mean Walmart doesn't have nutrient rich options. And so planning out your meals and making a list and having things on hand, so you don't feel stressed. When you're feeling stressed, you don't feel like you have to go through the drive through because you have nothing in the kitchen. And so you can really set yourself up for success if you plan a little bit and have things that you don't have to think about on the spot. Because when you're hungry, you're not wanting to cook, or you're not wanting to think about, okay, let me go grocery shopping. And the part about it doesn't taste good, I think, is definitely a major factor, just because we all have guilty pleasures and cravings. And I think people can equate healthy foods as them having to not be able to eat their favorite foods. But some of your favorite foods I think it's all about seasoning. Try, you have a little more pride when you cook something, I think. So oftentimes I can hear people say, I don't like to cook. And I always suggest they start with cooking their favorite meal if they're not sure how to navigate the kitchen, because you'll take a little bit more pride in it. You'll see, oh, wow, this is all that goes into my favorite meal. And playing around of just different flavor combinations can be fun. And I didn't start cooking until college, just because that was like my first time I needed to, because my mom always cooked. And so it was cool just to be able to, it became my source of entertainment because I could have people over. I learned how to cook for different people and their dietary restrictions, and see that you don't have to trade flavor for health. And the last thing I mentioned is just, I think we all have in our head an idea of what we want to look like, or just what society is telling us what we need to look like. And so we can be looking for those quick fixes of, oh, let me just go on this diet for X amount of time and I'll be able to obtain that certain weight, or get feel like, oh, I need to be ready for the summer season. And I think just, if you're constantly just trying to eat in a healthy mindset, or be in a healthy mindset, that can just alleviate some of the pressure of feeling like, oh, I'm not doing it right.
In the last interview that I had done with Dr. Jennifer Konzen, we talked a little bit about body image. Is that something that you have, are those type of is body image a conversation that you have to have with some people just to kind of work through why they're choosing to live a healthier lifestyle?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of times when you're having conversations about food, you'll dive deeper and maybe pull back some layers of other things, because I see food as a coping mechanism. So whether you're overeating or undereating, there's usually an underlying reason um, about why someone maybe where someone is on their health journey. And so a lot of times, of course, we can use food as comfort. And while we say, or we want to look a certain way, the stress of life can get to us. And I think body image definitely can dictate, or even just what other people think we should look like, whether that's parents or um, kind of what I said, like if society says that you're not beautiful because you're not this certain look, that can be a driving force, unfortunately, for why you might try a certain diet or a certain new exercise routine. And they say that your friends influence you a lot. So if I told you, Jared, hey, I tried this diet, you should really try it, you might be more willing to try it because I suggested it, versus like you see an ad on Facebook, because my hopefully my opinion adds more weight to it, and it's like, oh, I went out of my way to tell you this, versus an ad that's in your face. And so body image, so my point is just trying to peel back the layers and see what their real motivation is in wanting to lose weight, and if it's a healthy reason, not, oh, I want to be able to please someone or fit into society, but hopefully it's, oh, I want to be stronger, I want to have more energy and have more quality sleep. Like those are the types of things that would be helpful in knowing, okay, this person has a healthy view of what healthy is.
You mentioned stress a few minutes ago. How does stress affect the health of a person when it comes to living a healthy lifestyle?
um so I think especially in these hard times with the virus, we're seeing stress come out in maybe ways we haven't seen. For many people, food can act like a friend, whether it's to reduce loneliness or provide comfort. And I think a lot of us, of course, are at home more, and so we can just grab like the first thing we see, or the first like if you're crunched for a deadline, you're not thinking, oh, let me go make a salad, or let me go figure out like the best snack I can have. It's not a coincidence. A lot of times, like the foods that people bring into work is like the donuts and the cakes. And so I think stress can definitely play a factor. With a lot of times we gravitate to the things we like. So the sugar and the snacks can be really can be hard for people. So I always recommend having like healthy snacks on hand, just so you're kind of setting yourself up for success, and you don't have to be thinking, you're eliminating that extra step, and you're not thinking in that moment, oh, let me go get something, it's right there. And so there's some studies actually that have been shown, the correlation between stress and increased consumption of high calorie, high fat foods. I don't know a lot of people who gravitate to like celery when they're stressed. So I think a lot of times there's a connection between the two.
I know with the COVID-19, the shelter in place, kind of the big joke that people are talking about now is how their sleep schedule has shifted, has changed. How does sleep affect the health of a person when there is the inconsistency of when you go to sleep and when you wake up, especially now that people are in shelter in place?
That's a good question. I think so. They're like early stages in research now that they're finding there's definitely a link between the quality of your diet and the quality of your sleep. And so when you're not sleeping as much, that can alter your level of hormones, and so that can ultimately increase your appetite. And so you're kind of like stressed. You might just not be thinking as clearly. You're going to grab the first thing you see. And the studies have shown that so far that the Mediterranean diet seems to have the most consistent findings in what can be helpful when you're thinking about sleep. The Mediterranean diet is limiting the red meat and the dairy products and really focusing on the fresh fruits, vegetables, and grains, and healthy oils, so like, and nuts. So I think a lot of times we kind of what you said, like right now the sleep patterns are a little bit off, but I think the general consensus is that the less sleep you get, the less thinking clearly you're gonna do. And I think there was a study, let me look, so now we're in like the experimental data right now, and it's showing that the sleep patterns are definitely influenced by, or our sleep patterns are definitely influenced by our eating habits. Or does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. I know
Yeah.
with the Mediterranean diet, I was I think it was last year, I was reading something on blue zones and how, the blue zone diets consist of a lot of the Mediterranean foods. And they're saying, oh, people that live in these blue zones around the world, they live longer, they're healthier. And I think a lot of it probably has to do with the diet that they have, along with the social interactions.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think also just not dismissing the importance of the physical activity. I think especially with these times of lack of movement, that definitely plays a factor. And those people are definitely a lot more active, I think, where the studies show they're walking more, they don't use their car as much. And so at least for me, I've been trying to walk more. So hopefully in these times we've been able to utilize this time as well for that.
So kind of, how does nutrition affect the mindset and the psychology of a person? If somebody's eating terribly, like a lot of junk food, and another person is eating very healthy, what different mindsets would each person have?
So I think of it as an equation, like whatever you put in is going to have to output something else out. And so if you're putting in nutrient rich foods, like brain boosting foods, you're going to think more clearly. There's so many studies that show the impact that students have when they have a healthy, great breakfast. Their test scores are higher. Or someone who is eating junk food, like their protein levels will be lower, or just the quality of the nutrients that we have. So especially for children, it's really important that they're getting the calcium rich foods that are going to help them build stronger bones and help them whether they're doing sports or as I said, in school. And so it definitely impacts the mind. I think even just you just feel groggier in a sense of just if you think about, if you're going to go for workout, you want to do a pre-workout snack that's going to pump you up and going to provide you that extra energy to sustain you, is going to impact you. And so in regards to psychology, there's definitely a link. I think there's a lot of studies that show we eat with our eyes, and just how our eyes can be bigger than our stomach. And so that's why I always go back to portion sizes. You can overestimate how much you actually need. It just looks so good, you can't help yourself, or at least I can sometimes. And so you can proactively do mind tricks for yourself. So whether that's eating on a smaller plate, or on the reverse side, eating on red like plates or bowls has shown to stimulate appetite. So that's why you'll see a lot of times in nursing homes, people are served on red, or they'll have a red napkin to try to promote those seniors that aren't eating as much. And so that's a great way to try to provide additional cues and opportunities for people to eat that doesn't like manipulate the system per se, but just trying to encourage better eating.
I read a book called Atomic Habits a couple of years ago, and one of the things he had mentioned was the environmental triggers. And so instead of, the example he gave was, instead of buying a bunch of apples and putting them in the refrigerator, instead to, buy apples and then put them in a nice big bowl and out on the counter or on the table, so that when you walk by it, you're more influenced to grab an apple and eat it than to go to the fridge. And so it's like developing habits in an easier way with the environment that you're in.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I like that example of just having fruit on the counter. I think like having like a bowl of candy, every time you walk by, you might grab it. But how many of us are really obtaining the recommended servings of fruits and vegetables? And so that's a cool idea. I like it.
A question that I'm curious about is, what might be some reasons why someone wouldn't feel motivated to eat healthy? I know you mentioned taste. Taste is a big one.
Yeah.
You mentioned busyness. You mentioned maybe a lack of knowledge, I guess you could say. If you have parents who never ate healthy, I guess you just weren't exposed to that lifestyle of eating healthy. Are there other reasons you can think of why someone wouldn't be motivated to eat healthy?
So those are all good points, I think, but I also think of just if you feel like you're just not getting the results and you feel, okay, I've tried so many different diets, or being told that you have to eliminate certain food groups or you feel like you have to trade off on something. And so I'm not, of course, not talking about if you have an allergy or an intolerance, but we are all motivated by hope, I think, in some extent. And so if you're not seeing your sacrifice per se paying off, even if it's the small goals, that can make you lose some motivation. And so something I would recommend is creating SMART goals. I don't know if you've heard of them, but there's a way to tangibly provide yourself goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So that's what the acronym stands for. And I think that can help you be less overwhelmed, to really hold yourself accountable and really break down this goal to something that, okay, if you achieve that, okay, what is the next goal? And really set yourself up for success. And then so maybe it's not, oh, I'm going to lose 5 pounds in a week, but it's, I'm going to go walk outside every day for 10 minutes with my dog. And I feel like that could be a little bit more feasible. And that kind of goes into my next point of just your expectations of yourself just might be a little bit unrealistic, whether it's feeling like you need to cook every meal from scratch, or that you need to make everything every day. And so it's kind of just meeting people where they're at. So if they only have 10 minutes to meal prep, then, okay, how can I best utilize those 10 minutes? Maybe this person level of cooking is just at the beginner level, and they would benefit from using Blue Apron or HelloFresh. No one has to be like spending hours in the kitchen if they like it, of course. But I think just reassessing, what are you expecting yourself to be doing? What do you even want to cook? Or maybe it's, okay, this week I'm really going to just work on prepping healthier snacks. And then lastly, I would say, as you said, just the knowledge of what works for you. The way your body digests food might be different than mine. And because oftentimes people will ask me, oh, Nikki, I just love if you'd make me a meal plan. And for me to do that, I would really have to know more about, okay, what is this person's lifestyle like? Do they like cooking? Do they want to cook? What's their budget, their time constraints? And so really knowing what works for you and not feeling like you have to adopt any and everything that other people are doing.
Is there a test that people can take to know how their body digests different foods, like based on their body type? Because I'm assuming, I'm assuming a guy body digests food differently than a woman's because of the different body type.
Mm-hmm. So that would go more into like metabolism. And so,
okay.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say there's a test you could take, but there's a lot of, if you do more of the body composition analysis, where you can have the screens, that could be really helpful. And so there's like a lot of it comes like from genetics and just like your makeup. So my bone structure is smaller than other people's, and so I'm just a naturally smaller person. And so there's a lot of factors that go into your body composition, and so kind of full circle, not getting caught up in, oh, I must be healthier because I'm smaller than you or something.
Awesome. You mentioned about small victories. I read a book, The Neuroscience of Winning and Losing, and so they talked about the importance of having small victories so that you continue to be inspired and to stay motivated to keep striving for bigger goals and larger goals. Is that something that you encourage people to do, is just go after those small victories?
Yeah, definitely. I think it can build your confidence and help you. I think a lot of times we can doubt ourselves, or kind of what I said, if you're not seeing the results that you set out, you can feel defeated and just like, okay, might as well just not even try. I already ate the ice cream, I might as well finish it. And so I think the SMART goals is a really cool way to set yourself up for success. And as you chip away on whatever you're wanting to do, you can add to it every week and build off of that. And hopefully, and I think it's really helpful to have like an accountability partner or someone who's going to be a cheerleader with you or remind you, hey, you remember you wanted to go for a walk today? That can be really helpful to keep you on track.
So go over the SMART goals again. What does the S stand for?
Specific.
And
Yeah.
specific. M is measurable.
Mm-hmm.
A is, what is the A?
SMART, specific. Ooh. Specific, measurable. Oh, attainable.
Attainable. And then the R is?
Realistic.
And then the T?
Time bound.
Time bound. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. We
So
will, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to give you an example. Like if I was, a lot of times people will come in saying, I want to lose 5 pounds, but something that would be more concrete and something that someone could follow up is, I want to go to the gym every 2 times a week to do 20 minutes of cardio. And so you can tangibly evaluate if that was achieved or not. Okay, did you do the 20 minutes every for 3 days a week, and versus I just want to work out? And so that, I think, helps everyone just to know you're on the same page and chip away and see if that's a realistic goal.
So what happens when somebody's very consistent at working out, but they're not eating healthy? What will happen to, like, I guess what happens to their body? I don't know if you've seen, I don't know if there's been any studies about that. If someone's really going hard in the gym, but they're eating fast food 3 times a day, every day.
Yeah. So it's kind of just going back to my analogy of like whatever you're putting in is going to have to output. And so oftentimes just being intentional with the pre-workout snack can be helpful. But to answer your question, if someone's consistently working out and they're not eating well, I would say they're not refueling properly. And so you're expending all this energy, but how are your body needs time to recover. So you're going to probably have less stamina, less muscle mass and blood flow, because if you're expending all this energy, but you're in, as you said, the junk food, you're not going to be able to go as at that high caliber level the next day. And I'm sure you're working out for a reason, whether it's you're wanting to build muscle mass or you're wanting to be more toned. And so there's recommendations that you want to be replenishing about 15 to 25 grams of protein if you're exercising for 2 hours or so. And so this being really intentional with your workouts. And so whether that means having it planned out beforehand so you can just run in and grab a smoothie, or just having those snacks so after the workout, because I'm sure you're not thinking like, oh, I want to make this gourmet meal afterwards. You just want to refuel. That can be really helpful. And so you probably would not be getting the results you're wanting if you're not refueling properly. You'll probably plateau, maybe be more groggy, or I've seen when people are just when you're expending the energy, I've seen unfortunately people that have like passed out or something just because they haven't prepared themselves for that workout.
What's the best thing for someone to eat after they are done working out? Or is it the best thing for someone to drink after they're done working out? Or is it both?
So both. Like I know a lot of people lean on like Powerade or Gatorade, and those have a lot of great electrolytes. But that's really for people that are doing the high level endurance activities, like someone who's training for like a triathlon or something, that they need to really replenish their electrolytes. If you're doing like a 30-minute workout, water would just be completely fine. But we always recommend regarding food to pair a protein and a carb together afterwards. So whether that's like cottage cheese and fruit, or yogurt and or that's not a good one, but like peanut butter and crackers or something like that, just because that'll help with the digestion, and the studies really do show that that can really help with the recovery process.
Why is yogurt not a good one?
Just because I was thinking of yogurt, of like protein and complex carbs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. I heard tuna. Would tuna be a good after
Yeah.
workout food?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think that like canned tuna, would you say, or you just like?
I assume so. I
Yeah.
that's the only thing I remember from health class. So.
Well, I was just gonna build off of that. I think a lot of times people can compartmentalize what they should be eating, and canned foods can get a bad rap. And so if that's what's available, that's what you have. That it's inexpensive or less expensive than other sources of protein, then go for it. I don't think you should feel like you are limited in what protein sources you're using. There might be different levels of protein content, but if that's what's available and that's what you like, do it.
Awesome. I want to transition to, I know fasting, a lot of research has been coming out about the benefits of fasting. What are the, I guess, health benefits of fasting? Whether it's intermittent fasting and full day fast.
So a lot of the research shows better weight management. You're oftentimes a little bit more intentional and vigilant on what you're eating, just because the frequency has gone down, the portions have probably gone down, and so you're gonna be the quantity of what you're eating is going to be down, and so the quality usually goes up, because if you're doing the fasting, you're a little more aware of, okay, I only get, like, let's say you have 800 calories, okay, I only get that for the day. What do I want to use that for, and what do I want to allocate? And so also, there's been shown decrease in cardiovascular disease and diabetes. And with that, it's like improved blood glucose, because again, you're probably being a little bit more mindful of the choices you've made. I do want to say, I think fasting, especially intermittent fasting, has gotten it's a trend now. But I would really recommend that someone go and talk to their physician before they just start doing something like that, just because of the complications that can happen. A lot of the research that has come out, it's been on laboratory rats and mice, and as we know, there's only so much to an extent that bleeds over into the impact of humans. And so while it can be helpful, and of course for religious reasons, if you do it, it can be beneficial, but I think people can use it not for its intended purpose all the time.
And what age do you recommend somebody start fasting? Like I'm assuming kids. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I guess it wouldn't be beneficial for a teenager to fast because they're still developing physically, or is it okay for a teenager to fast?
I don't like to think of just like, oh, by at 18 you can start fasting. I think it would just be more about what is the thinking behind that. What is the time frame? If you're doing it for one day, that's a lot different than 7 days. And just how are you thinking of what are you gonna eat afterwards, or what are you? Because if you think, oh, I'm gonna fast, and then I'm just gonna be able to like splurge on a big pizza because I earned it. I think knowing the reasoning behind it would be helpful to discern if this person should or should not. And then, as I said, with their health history, someone with diabetes probably shouldn't be fasting for as long as someone who doesn't. And so, but I could definitely see someone who's in their high school or something, like just the long days at school probably wouldn't be the best idea. But everyone needs to do what they feel comfortable with.
What is, because I've heard of like, with vegans, and with other, like keto diet, vegetarian, there's like different people that try different diets, and then I'm guessing if you switch to another diet, would you recommend talking to a physician first, like your doctor first, before switching to a different diet? Because going from not fasting to fasting, switching diets, when your body experiences a change, like what does that do to the body? Is that healthy to change diets all the time, to go from fasting to not fasting all the time?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend they talk with their physician about any changes they're making. It could definitely be a shock to the system. And just a lot of times I say, you don't know what you don't know. And so keeping your physician in the loop is always helpful. And I think also just even like doing an assessment for yourself of what is the change for that. If you're going from fasting to a high carb diet, like that would be a very drastic change. And then my question is always like, well, how long are you thinking of doing that for? If you're going to change, what's the next step after that? Would you go back to fasting, or would you or are you trying to do the new diet long term? And oftentimes that's not something that people think about. And so that I like to just try to paint a full picture. And because I know for myself, you can see something new and shiny and want to try it, but it's like, okay, how does this actually fit into my life? Is this realistic? Not something that will give me a quick fix that I'm looking for.
Talking about mental health, how does not eating healthy correlate with depression and anxiety? Or is it like the chicken or the egg? If you're depressed and you're anxious and then you not eat healthy, or does not eating healthy lead to depression and anxiety? I guess how are the two correlated?
So there's definitely a relationship. It's hard to say which one came first. They see that those that are less depressed and have less anxiety usually do consume higher quality diets. It can definitely impact the appetite, whether it's over or under eating. I think even just the perception, or if there is a real pressure, that can just make you anxious. And just going back to the concept of the body image, you can oftentimes see people using food as a coping mechanism. If they are depressed or they're having those anxious thoughts, you're just not always thinking as clearly or seeing your part in the situation, whether that's, oh, like I can make healthier choices, I can portion out my food. And so there's been a lot of studies that show that eating more healthy can decrease your risk of depression. And so that's eating the more fresh, and well, it doesn't have to be like fresh. We can talk about that more, but like eating more variety of foods and just trying to opt for nutrient-rich options. I always think of it because so there's recommendations of, oh, you should be eating X amount of servings of the different like fruits and vegetables. And if you're really striving to eat that, there's not much room for the junk food. So like I know for my, like they recommend 5 to 6 servings of vegetables. I know I really need to be vigilant about that. And then I'm full. So if I'm eating that every day, I don't have room to be eating French fries or pizza. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if there's not as many servings of vegetables in the junk food.
So what is your, has there been any studies about the public school systems, you know, cafeteria food? I know some schools really strive to be able to meet that nutritional need for the students. Other schools, you know, are not able to because of budgeting or whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's been any studies on that.
So yeah, there's been a lot of studies on just the impact of school nutrition, whether that's the school breakfast lunch program or the national school lunch program. So they both supply a good amount of the meal. So for the school lunch program, I think they provide about 30 million children their lunch, and then the school breakfast about 14 million. So as you can see, it's a very important part of the students' day on their ability to think clearly, stay alert, test scores, higher test scores. And there has been a lot of back and forth just with the Trump administration lessening the nutrition guidelines that have been put in place previously. And as you said, it's can be hard to satisfy all of the parties that are involved while also factor in labor costs and budget. And kids are not going to eat things that don't look palatable. And so trying to find, I think of it as a matrix of, okay, how can we keep the costs down while also satisfying the parents? Because they don't want to be told their kids are eating junk, but then the kids want the fries or the snacks. And so it is definitely a hard, I would call it a dance too, of just how do you satisfy all those parties, but also the restrictions have, while also maintaining those guidelines and the culinary expertise of the school.
I know that I read an article a while back about schools that were providing a lot of healthy options for students, which looks good, but then they also found out that a lot of the students were throwing the food away because they didn't want
Yeah.
to eat them because they didn't taste good. And so the school felt like they were wasting a lot of money on these nutritional options. And they're like, well, we might as well just cut that out of the budget because the kids are just going to throw it away and it's wasted food. And so it's, I mean, does it go back to just the food tasting good? Does it, I mean, how do we solve this problem of getting the kids' needs met, but at the same time, the school doesn't feel like they're wasting money?
So yeah, that's definitely unfortunate, because that's one of the reasons the Trump administration was wanting to lessen the restrictions was because of that food waste. And so I think part of it is just helping provide exposure. Studies show that kids need at least 5 to 10 times exposure to different foods. So a lot of times these kids are eating maybe different meals at home, and so they're being exposed to new foods that they've never seen before. And so providing that hands-on experience, whether it's, okay, you don't need to try the food today, but just smell it, like use all of your senses to just be like around it. Because sometimes people won't even like, they're not open to the idea of trying new foods. And so whether it's implementing like cooking classes, so getting them more confident in the kitchen of, oh, what does it look like to be making your favorite meal of pizza, and providing that kitchen confidence to them can be helpful and get them excited to see, oh, like healthy food, and I don't want to say healthy, but like different foods that I'm not used to can still taste great. Because I think half of the barrier is getting them to try it. And if they're used to like flavored milk, they might be resistant to trying the whole milk, which is more recommended, just because they're like, a lot of it is fear. We just don't know. We don't want to try things we're not sure of how it's going to pan out. And so if you can, there's this a study I saw, and it was like the the important thing is not that one person like is the trailblazer. It's that they have one follower, because that is the
Mm-hmm.
hype person is going to help them to show, oh, this does work, or oh, help get excited about this. And so if you can get one person to help advocate, so if that's like one student who really likes something, or making it fun, so showing, hey, if you eat this, this can help you be stronger, and don't you want to be able to perform well in the next track meet or something. And so really bringing it to their level of how is this going to help them, because they see it as, you're taking away my chicken nuggets, but it's like, no, we're actually providing you the nutrients you need to do your best.
I know supplements are big. What are your thoughts and opinions on people taking supplements? It seems like every celebrity and show has their own supplement line. What are some guidelines that you give people when it comes to choosing supplements and whether or not people should take supplements?
Um, so there is no standard or across the board definition of what can be in supplements. And so that can be a little bit scary, just because we're trusting whatever the packaging is saying. And the manufacturers are the ones that determine the types and the quantities of what is in the supplements. And so I definitely see that there's a time and place for them. I always promote food first. And so if there's an opportunity for you, so let's say you're taking an omega-3 fatty acid, because you were told that would be helpful, I would recommend before reaching for the supplement to see, okay, what are some ways I can add in more omega-3 fatty acids? That would be with like seafood and healthier oils, and you're gonna have to eat anyways. And so if you're able to incorporate and fold those into your life before doing the supplements are expensive. Like
Mm-hmm.
if that's a way that you can do that, it would be helpful. And I always think of the word supplement, it's supposed to be in addition to, not as a replacement. And when I say that there's a time and place, I would say some people do live in food deserts, and so maybe they don't have access to them, or if they're a vegetarian and they're not getting their B12, or there's of course different scenarios where they can be beneficial. But I really encourage people to read and do their research on, okay, where is this being produced, like what is the side effects, and maybe trying to see if they can first add in those foods first, or the nutrients in through their foods first.
It could also be a placebo. People feel healthier if
Yeah,
they're taking supplements.
yeah, that's a good point.
So people watching, I'm sure a big question everyone's asking is, okay, we're on board. We want to eat healthy. We agree. Is someone able to eat healthy on minimum wage? I guess, what are your thoughts on that? I know you mentioned myths and misinformation of, you have to have a lot of money to eat healthy. So can someone eat healthy and live a healthy lifestyle on minimum wage?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's not easy. You definitely have to meal plan and think it through in regards of, what does my week look like. That's where your creative juices can flow, because thinking of different ways you can use the same ingredients for different meals. So maybe if you buy eggs for the week, I'm gonna use it for my breakfast, but then I'm also gonna make hard-boiled eggs as a snack, and then I'm also gonna um, make, I don't know, like something, bake something, but just trying to, versus buying isolated items. The meal prepping is really going to set someone up for success no matter what their budget is. I think also purchasing in bulk, we can oftentimes buy the smallest package, but if you're going to use something anyways, you might as well, if you can, pay up front. Or if you're not sure if you want to try something, I like going to the bulk section just because it's less expensive. And so oftentimes going to the ethnic grocery stores is helpful because it's less expensive. The food is still fresh. For those that live in Dallas, H Mart is a great option. The food's so fresh there. The produce is like half the price, but it's great quality food. And so I think not feeling like you have to do it how everyone else is doing, looking at the circulars and making the list so you're not overwhelmed when you go to the store is really helpful, just because, okay, I know I'm going to make chicken stew tonight. What are the ingredients I need? And or make there's a thing called the pantry challenge. So it's like, okay, what I have in my pantry is what I'm going to use. And so oftentimes we don't realize we already have a lot of meals in the pantry. We just have to, maybe it's not doing the recipe exactly how it is, but I'm going to use what I have and not feel like it's not going to come out well. And I think also, meat can be really expensive. So trying to find non-meat protein options. So the dairy, so whether that's yogurt or milk or eggs or cheese, if you're also tofu. I love tofu. It absorbs any flavor that you cook it with. And so I know that can be an adjustment for some people's taste buds, but you can, for the amount of protein at H Mart, it's like $6.99 for like 32 ounces of tofu. Like you can't beat that. And so I think it's also just being open to, how can I fold in other like nuts or peanut butter? Like those are inexpensive protein options that can really help stretch your meals. And frozen as well. I know that frozen foods can get a bad rap because we all want fresh food, of course, but in actuality, frozen foods are packaged at their ripeness, and so you don't have to worry about, of course, like going bad before you use it. And just being able to, if that is a way that you can add in more veggies, go for it. And as I said, watching portion sizes is helpful, just because not only are you going to be more mindful of how much you're eating, but your food will stretch a bit more if you're just more conscious of that. And eating when you're hungry versus just because you can is helpful too.
Serving the homeless. A lot of people would rather give a homeless person food more so than money. If you were to cook a meal or give like a meal to a homeless person, what is a cheap, easy, healthy way for, what meal would you cook for them that would benefit that homeless person for the day?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I would assume that it would have to be something that because they would have to eat something nutritious that they're probably not getting on a regular basis because of their current situation.
Yeah, well, so where my head went initially, I wasn't even thinking of the homeless person, but my head always goes to, oh, you couldn't give them anything with the top 8 allergens because you don't know this person. Like that's where my head goes. Just because that would be terrible if something were to happen to them. But removing that concept, as you said, something nutrient rich. So probably like a sandwich, like with meat, like whole wheat. So you're getting the grains, veggies, and then it's portable for them. I'm trying to be realistic of like, okay, they might not eat it right then. They might not, they probably want meat, probably a bag of like chips or fruit. I think sometimes we can get caught up in, if it's not exactly this way, it's not healthy. But if that's what someone's going to eat at that time and they haven't, I think it's also, okay, I know this person would eat this. That's also a factor. And so I always try to think of ways that you can put a spin on it. So maybe it's not a white like hoagie roll, but whole wheat bread. And so they're getting more fiber, they're getting more whole grains, as I said, which is recommended. And so just trying to put my spin on how can I still give them something that's realistic, but I don't need to give them like an ice cream sandwich.
And it would probably have to be something like finger food because they probably don't have utensils.
Exactly. Yeah.
Unless if you did soup, you'd probably have to put it in a styrofoam cup or something that they can hold. Would soup be a good option? I know you could probably add in a lot of nutrients into soup.
Yeah, like soup is a really great option. I think just in general, just because as you said, you can really bulk it up. I always just think of like they might not want to eat it right then. And so
Yeah.
would they be able to go heat it up? Or I don't know. I'm projecting because I would not eat cold soup. Um, but you could definitely do, I think I like the way you're thinking of just how are ways, nutrient rich ways you could serve them. And so maybe it's a salad and you can just bulk that up with nuts and seeds and dried fruit and protein.
Yeah, forget the soup. That it was a bad idea. I'll stick with the
No,
sandwich and salads.
no. You know what? I'm sure someone would take your soup.
I don't know. I don't want them to eat cold soup, so.
Let me know if they do
So
it. We'll see how it goes.
okay, I'll definitely see how it goes, and I'll let you know.
You should take us on your journey and like let us see the response.
I'll do my own research on what homeless people eat and how long they keep the food and whatnot. No, that's okay. I'll leave the research to the researchers. So for the person watching, what is something that they could do? Like, what's the first step, would you say? Because I know you said a lot of things, and everyone's thinking, "Oh man, I gotta do this and this and this, and I've gotta change all these things about the way I'm eating, the way I'm living." What's a good first step for someone to take that wants to go on this journey of eating and living a healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, it can be really overwhelming. I would say an initial step would just before you don't want to be making any like drastic changes. So the first step would be having a food diary. So that would be tracking what you're eating, not making any changes, but I'm just gonna go about my day. Anytime I have a snack, anytime I drink something, uh, recording the frequency, the amount. So if I have an apple and peanut butter, like that's some just. I think the first thing is just awareness, and then just going from there. So maybe it's creating a SMART goal or really looking at, well, where am I wanting to be in my health journey in a few years, or just what is something realistic, a SMART goal that I can make that is attainable, and just going from there. There's a lot of you can be overwhelmed with the different recommendations. So I think it's really being true to what you feel comfortable with and not feeling like you have to adopt every and all things. If you break it down of, okay, I want to eat one more vegetable, well, what does that look like for you? And not feeling like you have to overhaul your food, because you want to build a sustainable, healthy lifestyle.
I heard a health psychologist talk about the importance of community and the importance of eating healthy with other people, to have other people there to support you. Um, I, I mean, has there been any research on the improvement of someone's lifestyle and eating as they're doing it with somebody else? Would you recommend having a few friends kind of there doing it with you to support you on the journey?
Yeah, I definitely would. I think just not even with health wise, but if you look at just in your job or like there's a reason we have deadlines, and there's a reason that it's helpful to just share what you're doing with each other as a reminder. And sometimes people have even, like, I'm not going to say better ideas, but sometimes people can add to your ideas of, you like tuna, why don't you try that? And you're like, oh right, I do like tuna. And so the accountability is definitely a big factor, whether that's them being your cheerleader, them just checking in on you, or doing it with you. I know it is very hard. You'll hear about people who the one spouse goes on a diet and the other one isn't, and then the other person just reverts back to their ways. It is very hard to be trying to make changes and someone else isn't. And so not to feel like you can't make those changes, but communicating what you're trying to do. I think oftentimes it can be hard to go to social gatherings because you're not sure what is going to be there. So I always recommend, of course, bring something you're going to eat. You're going to want to eat. You'll at least have one thing, and not assuming that there'll be something, or maybe it's you eat before then, so you're not tempted, because a lot of times it isn't the most healthy options. And so just setting yourself up for success so you can still engage and be part of your community, I think is helpful.
Do you have any books or websites that people can go to continue their learning on the subject of eating, eating healthy and living a healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, I can send you some. One that comes to mind is Body Kindness and Intuitive Eating. Those are two really great books that really peel back the layers on kind of like the psychology behind eating, eating with the right cues, and just really, for a lot of dietitians, I would say it's just helping people to fall in love with food, to get excited. It always is a bummer when you hear someone's like, oh, I have to think about lunch. And it's like, food is meant to be enjoyed. It's a fuelant. It's a connector. It brings community. And so I would suggest just continuing to do your own research. I oftentimes look at like, okay, who wrote this? What is their objective? Just having that lens of, and not getting bogged down by the latest trends. There's always a new article of you need this to lose the weight, but really maintaining the spirit of, okay, what did I set out to do, and not letting those distractions tell you otherwise, especially if you've seen success in the past.
Awesome. Yeah, I can put those in the YouTube description so people can click on the link. I'm sure people have a lot of questions they want to ask you, depending on, because people are in different situations and whatnot. Where's the best place that people can learn more about you? Where can people connect with you online?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or they can email me, my first and last name at gmail.com. I'm happy to answer questions and refer them. I always say I don't know all the answers, but I can find them. So I can always refer them to someone if they want to do one-on-one counseling, or if they have specific questions. I definitely want to be able to connect them.